We are going to continue with Macbeth. We have already completed Act 3, Scene 3, and we have found out the murder of Duncan. Everybody has come to know about it, and everybody has their own reaction. Malcolm and Donalbain has run away to England and Ireland to protect themselves. Macbeth and Lady Macbeth are pretending as if they are very shocked, very upset with the murder. And obviously the positive characters like Banquo and Macduff, these characters are very upset with this incident. Now, after this discovery scene, we have Act 3, Scene 4, which is called the Old Man scene. In this scene, the Thane of Ross is meeting an old man and they discuss what kind of atrocities had happened in the previous night. And the old man says that I have never seen such things happen. Earlier also I informed you that this kind of things happen because nature is expressing its disapproval to such an incident. The murder of a king is not a natural incident. So naturally, nature is not going to accept such a thing, and the natural world is expressing its displeasure by storm and thunder and various weird things, various supernatural things that happened on that night. So Ross and the old man discusses it, and after that, when the old man goes away, we see Macduff and Ross discuss about what is to be done next, because already Duncan has died and Malcolm and Donalbain have eloped. They have run away, and these people are not sure why have they run away. Obviously, after a murder, when somebody runs away, the first idea that spreads is maybe they were the culprit. They have something to do, that is why they are running away to protect themselves. So there is a situation of doubt at this moment, and Ross was almost sure that it was the grooms, that is the guards of Duncan's chamber who committed the murder, but Macduff is not so easy to be convinced. So Macduff is sure that there is a greater mystery about it, and this is making us realize that he is not going to stay quiet about this murder. So we are not going to read this scene. We are rather going to Act 3, Scene 1, because that previous scene, the old man scene, is not that important. So we are going to Act 3, Scene 1, and this takes place in Forres, the palace, and we have Banquo here. Now Banquo has a soliloquy. He is thinking aloud. He says, "Thou hast it now, King, Cawdor, Glamis, all, as the weird women promised, and I feared thou playedest most foully for it." So Banquo says that Macbeth, now you have everything. You have the Thane of Cawdor, you have the title of Thane of Glamis, and now you have become the king also. And I think whatever the witches had promised you have turned true in your case, and I also believe that you have played something fraud, something wrong in order to achieve this target. Yet it was said, it should not stand in thy posterity, but that myself should be the root and father of many kings. Please underline up to this much of this speech. So Banquo says, however wrong you might be, Macbeth, however wrong in achieving this target you might have been, but this is not going to stay with you forever, because the witches have also prophesied that the crown is going to be passed on to my future generation. My children will be the future king. So it's not going to stay with you. If there come truth from them, as upon thee, Macbeth, in their speeches shine, why by the verities on thee made good, may they not be my oracles as well, and set me up in high hope, but hush no more. So he says that if the prophecy of the witches have turned true in your case, then I am sure that it should turn true in my case as well. What's wrong with that? If I expect that my future generation will be the next kings, but then he says, now I am not going to discuss it anymore, because I hear somebody is approaching, somebody is coming towards me. And now we see Macbeth enters the stage, this time not as a general, not as the Thane of Cawdor or Glamis, but as the King of Scotland. Along with him, Lady Macbeth is there, and she is now the Queen of Scotland, and they have a few lords to attend them, like Lennox and Ross and some other attendants. Macbeth says, "Here is our chief guest." Lady Macbeth says, "If he had been forgotten, it had been as a gap in our great feast, and all thing unbecoming." So Macbeth says that, see, this is our special guest Banquo, and Lady Macbeth flatters Banquo by saying that if we had forgotten him to invite him to our special dinner party, then the dinner party would have been incomplete. So basically, Lady Macbeth and Macbeth are throwing a grand dinner party to celebrate their kingship, and that too at a time when the king has just died. So, however, they pretend that they are shocked at the death, but this makes it quite clear in front of the intelligent people of the community that they are happy at the death of Duncan. That is why they are celebrating their kingship with such grandeur by throwing a banquet that evening. Macbeth says, "Tonight we hold a solemn supper, sir, and I will request your presence." So Macbeth says that we are going to have a ceremonial banquet. Solemn supper here means a ceremonial banquet to honor my coronation as the next king, and I request you, please be present on this occasion. Banquo says, "Let your highness command upon me, to the which my duties are with a most indissoluble tie ever knit." Now Banquo is not talking to his friend Macbeth, he is talking to the king. So obviously his tone is changing. He says, "Whatever you wish, my lord, my king, it's a command for me. You just tell me what duties you expect from me, and I am ready to fulfill that." Macbeth says, "Ride you this afternoon?" Banquo says, "Hey, my good lord, are you going out somewhere?" Banquo confirms, "Yes." Macbeth says, "We should have else desired your good advice, which still hath been both grave and prosperous in this day's council. But we will take tomorrow. Is it far you ride?" So Macbeth is asking Banquo that, well, I wanted to take your suggestion on some serious aspects, but anyways, when you are going out today, we can take the suggestions tomorrow. But are you going quite far, or it's just a trip nearby? And Banquo says, "As far, my lord, as will fill up the time twixt this and supper." So he says that I'm not going very far. I'm going to a place from where I am sure I will be able to reach before the supper time starts. That means before the banquet starts. "Go not my horse the better. I must become a borrower of the night for the dark hour or twain." So he says that I am sure that my horse will provide me the required speed so that I can reach the castle on time. I will, in simple word, he is saying that I will reach here on time, in perfect time. Now why is this important? Because Macbeth is very carefully trying to extract information from the mouth of Banquo. He has a very hideous plan of murdering Banquo as well. Macbeth is very, very afraid of Banquo. He thinks that the only person who can unsettle my throne is Banquo. So in order to secure his position as the king, already he has become the king by doing one murder. But to secure his position as the king, he has to commit another murder. Because Banquo is the source, according to the witches, Banquo is the source of the future generation of kings. So at any cost, this source has to be stopped. And therefore Macbeth has already made a plan of killing Banquo before the banquet today. And that is why he is trying to find out some informations about Banquo's whereabouts. Where is Banquo going? When will he come? Will he come by evening? Is he going very far? All these informations Macbeth is trying to extract from Banquo so that he can use it to kill Banquo. Macbeth says, "Fail not our feast. Don't forget to return to our feast." Banquo says, "My lord, I will not." Macbeth says, "We hear our bloody cousins are bestowed in England and in Ireland, not confessing their cruel parricide, filling their hearers with strange invention." So now Macbeth reveals an important information to us. He says that we have already come to know that Donalbain and Malcolm have run away to England and Ireland, and there instead of confessing their crime of killing Duncan, rather Malcolm and Donalbain are spreading false stories. Obviously, by this time, Malcolm and Donalbain have started telling everyone that they have not committed the murder, and most probably it's Macbeth, because of Macbeth's hurry to become the king just after the death of Duncan makes it quite clear that he was greedy for the throne. So now they have started spreading that story, and Macbeth tells that these are strange inventions, these are fanciful stories, not real. So he is referring to Malcolm and Donalbain as bloody cousins because he is trying to put the blame on Malcolm and Donalbain as the murderers of Duncan. But of that tomorrow, when therewithal we shall have cause to state craving us jointly. So we are going to discuss this tomorrow, not today. When you come back and we will have a lot of free time, we shall discuss it. Hie you to horse, adieu, till you return at night. Goes Fleance with you? Goodbye to you till you come back tonight. Is Fleance, your son, going with you? So another piece of information he is trying to take out from here, that is Fleance travelling with you? Banquo says, my good lord, our time does call upon us. Yes, we will both be going together, and the time is up for us to start. Macbeth says, I wish your horses swift and sure of fruit, and so I do commend you to their backs. I wish your horses take you safely and soundly and quickly bring you back. Farewell. Banquo goes away from the stage, and Macbeth says, let every man be master of his time till 7 at night, to make society the sweeter welcome. We will keep ourselves till supper time alone, while then God be with you. So Macbeth orders that everyone should do whatever they like, take rest or do whatever they like up to 7 o'clock. We are going to gather and have a meeting once again at 7 o'clock. So Macbeth leaves the stage. Other than Macbeth, everyone else leaves the stage, and now Macbeth is going to have a very important soliloquy. So Macbeth calls a servant and he says, Sirrah, a word with you. Attend those men our pleasure. Sirrah means also Mr., but normally Sirrah was a term which was used only for the servants. So Macbeth is calling the servant and saying, hey Mr., is there somebody waiting outside to talk to me? That means he is waiting for somebody to have a conference, to have a discussion. The attendant says, the servant says, they are, my lord, without the palace gate. That means they are waiting outside the palace gate. Bring them before us. Yes, call them inside. The attendant goes and starts another very, very significant soliloquy of Macbeth. Whenever there is a soliloquy, it is very important for you to understand very clearly and for the exam purpose to know everything in details. So, Macbeth says, to be thus is nothing, but to be safely thus. To be the king is nothing, but to be the king with safety and security of the throne is something worthy. Our fears in Banquo stick deep and in his royalty of nature. I am really afraid of Banquo because he has a royalty of nature. Now, what is a royalty of nature? He has a very loyal kind of nature. He cannot be easily convinced to change sides. He cannot be easily convinced to do something wrong. So, he has a royalty of nature. What makes Macbeth afraid? So, and in his royalty of nature reigns that which would be feared. And more importantly, there is a chance that the witches have already proven that Banquo's future generations will be king. So that is something Macbeth is very afraid about. It is much he dares, and to that dauntless temper of his mind he hath a wisdom that doth guide his valour to act in safety. So Banquo, according to Macbeth, is a lethal combination of courage and intelligence. So on one hand, he has the courage to do a lot things, to do a lot of challenging things. He has a dauntless temper. That means he has a very courageous attitude. On top of that, to guide his courage, he has wisdom. He is very intelligent. So he is not going to misutilize his courage. He is not going to misuse his courage. Rather, his courage is driving his wisdom is driving his courage towards the right direction, towards safety. Underline. There is none but he whose being I do fear, and under him my genius is rebuked. As it is said, Mark Antony was by Caesar. So there is no one else of whom I am afraid at this moment, and it is only Banquo for whom my confidence is shaken. Banquo, as if at this moment, is like Mark Antony in the story of Julius Caesar. Now, what happened to Mark Antony and Julius Caesar after the death of Julius Caesar, when Brutus and all other conspirators tried their best to prove to everyone that they have killed Caesar for the public welfare? It was Mark Antony, the most faithful friend of Julius Caesar, who proved in front of everyone that Caesar was greatly wronged and his murder was a crime. And that led to the downfall of Brutus and everyone else. So at this moment, Macbeth finds himself in a similar situation. He realizes that he is in the situation of Brutus. He has already murdered Duncan, and now he is that betrayer, but nobody would dare to challenge him unless and until somebody like Mark Antony comes and turns the table. So who is this Mark Antony? None but our Banquo. So he is using a classical allusion referring to a classical incident or a Shakespearean text, but obviously this is a reference to the classical text. His chide, he chid the sisters. Chide means scold. Sisters means the witches. When first they put the name of king upon me and bade them speak to him. So when the witches told me that I am going to be the king, he scolded them and told them to speak something to him. Then prophet-like they hailed him father to a line of kings. Upon my head they placed a fruitless crown and put a barren scepter in my grip. Thence to be wretched with an unlineal hand, no son of mine succeeding. Then the witches very proudly, boldly prophesied that Banquo is going to be the father of a next line of kings. Therefore, the crown which I managed to wear is a fruitless crown. The scepter, that means the rod of authority which I am holding in my hand as a king, is useless, because after me, my children are not going to get that rod. After me, my children are not going to get this throne. After me, my children are not going to get this crown. Therefore, all is fruitless for me, all is barren for me. And they are fruitful for somebody else, that is Banquo. If it be so, for Banquo's issue have I filled my mind. For them, the gracious Duncan, have I murdered. So the Macbeth is asking a question that if that is going to be true, then have I killed Duncan for the sake of Banquo's children? Have I spoiled the peace of my mind for the sake of Banquo's better future? Put rancors in the vessel of my peace only for them, and mine eternal jewel given to the common enemy of man to make them kings. So I have put poison on my own cup of peace for making Banquo the father of the next king. Or I have given my soul, eternal jewel. What is the eternal jewel? Obviously the soul of mankind is eternal jewel. So he has given this soul, just like Dr. Faustus, to the hands of Satan, to the hands of devil, because he has committed a murder, and that to the murder of the king. So Macbeth is shocked. Macbeth is questioning that I have given my soul to the devil for the sake of making Banquo's children the next kings. The seed of Banquo kings, that means the children, seed here means. Rather than so, come fate into the list and champion me to the utterance. More than that, I think it would be better to finish me off. Come fate and finish me off. I don't want to see Banquo's children becoming king after me. And then he says, who's there? The soliloquy is over. So the attendant brings the murderers. So two murderers entered the stage. When the murder of Banquo will be shown, we will see there are three murderers. But here we see Macbeth talking to only two of them. So Macbeth orders the attendant that now go to the door and stay there till we call. So I am going to have a secret conference with these two murderers. You please go away and stand, he orders the servant. Macbeth says, was it not yesterday we spoke together? He tells the murderers that we talked together, right, yesterday. Obviously that means he has been in contact with these people for quite some time. First murderer says, it was, so please your highness. Yes, we did. Macbeth says, well then, now have you considered of my speeches? So already Macbeth has done the first round of brainwashing to these murderers in the previous day. Now he is going to continue with that. So he says that, did you think over it what I told you yesterday? That it was he in the times past which held you so under fortune, which you thought had been our innocent self. So have you understood that in the past it was Banquo who is the reason of your difficult life? Banquo had made your lives difficult, and you thought that I had made your lives difficult. Now is it clear that how Banquo had made your lives difficult in the past? So he has found out two murderers from the two characters from the past to whom he might have done something wrong, and now he has brainwashed these two people, saying that Banquo has done all the wrong in your life, so take revenge from Banquo. So he is not hiring murderers by giving them money, but very intelligently he is bringing two men who want to take revenge from Banquo, and revenge is a stronger motive than money. This I made good to you in our last conference, passed in the probation with you, how you were borne in hand, how crossed the instruments, who wrought with them, and all things else that might to half a soul to a nation crazed, say, thus did Banquo. So I explained to you very clearly who was the person behind your losses, who was the person who tortured you, who was the person who made your life difficult, and you have suffered a lot because of Banquo's wrongdoings. You had to suffer a lot, you had to bear a lot because of this man Banquo. So he has done complete brainwash of these two characters. Now the first murderer says, you made it known to us. Yes, you have told it already to us. Macbeth says, I did so and went further, which is now our point of second meeting. Did you find your patience so predominant in your nature that you can let this go? Are you so gospel to pray for this good man and for his issue whose heavy hand hath bowed you to the grave and begged yours forever? So he says that, are you so patient creatures that you will not do anything to take revenge from the man who has ruined your careers and made you beggars? Are you going to be silent? Are you going to be calm and quiet and not protest against the wrongdoings of a man who has done so wrong things with you in your life? So here he says that this is the purpose of our second meeting. So second meeting is because he is going to continue with the brainwash. Now some things I am going a little bit fast because those things are not very important, and if I feel the thing is very important, then I will go line by line. First murderer says, we are men, my liege, we are human beings, how can we suffer so much? Obviously if we have suffered, then we have the urge to take revenge. We have a limited amount of patience, not unlimited patience in us. Macbeth says, in the catalogue you go for men as hounds and greyhounds and mongrels and spaniels, curs, slogs, water rugs and demi-wolves are clept all by the name of dog. So as they said, we are human beings, we have a limited patience. Macbeth says, yes, you are human beings just for the namesake. Just as biologically spaniel and speech or say the Doberman and the Alsatian are all breeds of dogs, you are also various breeds of human beings. But each dog is different from the other. There is a dog like Doberman or the Alsatian which is very aggressive, which is very strong in attacking their opponents. Whenever they see something wrong, they strongly attack. And then there are very shy, timid dogs like the Speech or the Pug. These kind of dogs are cute and adorable ones. So human beings are also like this. Just like dogs have various categories, each dog has a particular feature. Similarly, human beings also have particular features. So you guys are human beings for the namesake, but in reality you are weak, you cannot take revenge. So he is instigating these men to act and take revenge. I am not going to read this full speech, I am skipping it because it's not that important. So I will directly jump a few lines and come here when Macbeth is saying, "So he is mine, and in such bloody distance that every minute of his being thrusts against my nearest of life." So he has been able to convince the murderers that Banquo is your enemy, and also that you are human beings, so as human beings you should take revenge for wrongdoings. Now he says that Banquo is not just your enemy, but he is also my enemy, and therefore his survival is threatening my throne every minute. And though I could with barefaced power sweep him from my sight and bid my will avouch it, yet I must not for certain friends that are both in his and mine, whose loves I may not drop, but wail his fall, who I myself struck down. So he says that, see, after being the king of the country, I have that much power that just by my desire, just by my wish, I can get Banquo killed. But I myself will not kill Banquo. Why? Because I and Banquo have some friends in common. We have some common friends. And if I kill Banquo publicly, then I will lose the confidence of those common friends. So I am going to wail, that means cry, in front of those common friends at the death of Banquo. But trust me, in reality, I strongly want the downfall of Banquo. I want him to die. And thence it is that to you, your assistants, do make love, masking the business from the common eye for sundry weighty reasons. So that is why I have called you and told you to do this act, because I have a lot of heavy reasons for not killing Banquo myself with my own hands. So both the murderers now confirms to Macbeth that we are going to perform the duty that you have given us. We are both going to commit the murder. So Macbeth next says, "Your spirits shine through you. Within this hour at most, I will advise you where to plant yourselves." Oh, brilliant! Now see, he is now using those techniques which Lady Macbeth had once used with him. Sometimes praising, sometimes blaming, sometimes challenging their manhood. So in every way he is trying to instigate the murderers to commit the murder of Banquo, just like Lady Macbeth had done to instigate him to commit the murder of Duncan. So he says that now your spirits are shining brightly. You are looking like a true man ready to take revenge. So he is praising them, boosting their confidence. And then he says that I will tell you very soon at which place you should hide yourself to do the action of murder. Acquaint you with the perfect spy of the time, the moment on it, for it must be done tonight, and something from the palace away thought that I require a clearness, and with him to leave no rubs nor botches in the work. So I want you to do this action exactly today at this night only, and I want it to be done a little bit away from the palace, not just near the palace, and it should be done in a very neat and clean manner so that nobody can find out any evidence for the death of Banquo. Finish him off without keeping any proof of his death. Fleance his son that keeps him company, whose absence is no less material to me than is his father's, must embrace the fate of that dark hour. So not just Banquo, but Fleance, who is going to accompany him, should also be killed, because he is also equally a great threat for me. Resolve yourself apart, I will come to you anon. So okay, now goodbye, but very soon I will tell you the time and the venue of the action. The murderer says, we are resolved, we are determined to do the murder. Macbeth says, I will call you upon you straight, abide within. Okay, I will call for you, now stay inside. The murderers go, and Macbeth has a concluding remark to make. He says, it is concluded, Banquo, thy soul's flight. If it find heaven, it must find it out tonight. Banquo, I have determined your fortune. If you are to go to heaven, tonight only you will go to heaven. So, there is something important about this scene. The important thing is that Macbeth, for the first time, is not consulting his wife. Once the Lady Macbeth, who was the main support system to Macbeth, has now lost her importance in his career. So, Macbeth's career as a murderer, as a ruthless murderer, is now going to proceed without the support and help of Lady Macbeth. He no longer requires Lady Macbeth to be with him at every steps because he has become an expert in this action of murder. So he keeps the murder of Banquo a secret from his dearest partner, from the partner to whom he had the maximum confidence. After this part of this play, you will see gradually Lady Macbeth is losing her importance in the life of Macbeth as well as in the story. So just we will see once in her once in the banquet scene, and then she will almost be lost from the story and just reappear in her death scene. So Macbeth is now going to travel alone as a murderer without the support of Lady Macbeth.